Good evening and welcome to my end of the week recap here for Apple and plan ahead for next week. Thursday did absolutely nothing. This here's a 5-minute chart. You can see it was nothing but chop between 8 EMA and this 190.37 level, which I've spoken about in my previous video is the all-time high, the previous all-time high, excuse me, on the weekly time frame. Below that, it's questionable whether or not the bulls are still going to have the strength to push it up to new highs. Volume here on the day you can see is very high. Was it 62 million shares almost? Pretty high volume day for Apple. A lot of participation. We'll have to wait and see what that participation does on Monday. As I stated, this green arrow or green bubble here is an area of demand. So we'll see if the market makers absorb that demand, push through it, take the stops out below, and come down to the next level. Now today I did take one bearish trade in Apple. Looked like there was a nice tight bear flag forming here on the 15, 30, and 1 hour time frames. As you can see, extended move down, came up, was testing VWAP. My initial entry was on the initial breakdown of what looked like was a bear flag break. Basically was a break just below this level, so I got into the 22 June 187 half puts here at 135. VWAP was my overall risk. Once it came up to there, I had a decision to make whether or not to bail on the play or add to it. Because my initial entry was a breakdown play, I did go ahead and add into the position and had my stop loss just above. So got my average down to 122. Once it started to break down a little bit, looks like some buyers were on the tape. I did take some off at 107.5 average. It was on a couple of fills. And then it looked like it found support here at the 21 EMA as well. So I closed out at 111. Basically closes out of fear. It was working in my favor, as you can see here on the 15-minute basis. Nothing but red candles, pushed down, and would have made a little bit of profit here. Didn't necessarily break down all the way, just kind of extended the flag out and voided it once it was up here. So kind of a crappy job of management on my part, but it is what it is. Can't really complain. And kind of managed the risk, took the small loss that I had to, and move on. Here on the 30-minute chart, or excuse me, chart from my trade plan, I did have this drawn here for as far as the flag. The measure move was down to about 186.5. We'll see if that plays out on Monday. It may actually run straight through there, come down, test this 185 level, maybe even the 50 SMA. Over here on the weekly time frame, you can kind of see what's going on a little bit better. Had what looks like a potential topping candle, has broken below it, which is simply a technical trigger of about 189. Excuse me, what's the low of that candle? 189.77. So that'll be an important level going forward. Anywhere between 189.77 and this 190.37 area is going to be a very important level for price action to have to reclaim. Still can be considered a possible retest of this pennant that had set up at the highs. Expanded what was a bull flag, and it's now starting to roll back through it. So probably going to come back down and find a support and look for another entry. I'm not going to chase this any higher because there's price action back above Apple at the moment, so you just have to be a little bit patient. Now, as far as the trades that I'm looking at taking, since I'm no longer in puts, I can go ahead and remove some of these lines, just clean it up just a little bit. And here's what I'll be looking for. If price action breaks below this 187.5, reclaims it, I will take calls approximately 2 weeks out in the future for a test of this 8 EMA up here at 191 roughly. Below there, this level here is 185, which is the lower end of what the initial range that had set up was. Right here on 185. And below there, I'm still going to stay bullish at the 50 SMA and look for 182.5 calls approximately 2 weeks out in the future. And way down below there, 172.5 calls at the 200 SMA about 2 weeks out in the future as well. There are a lot of gaps here on the daily time frames. Most gaps do like to fill, some of them don't. We'll just have to wait and see if that does happen. But this is a huge drop down here to 170. If that does happen, I expect to see a lot of call activity. So just have to be patient. And as I said in the last video, a lot of these flags like to break, chop around, come dip down somewhere, and then finally make it back up to the measured move target, which I still have up here of about 215. So we'll see what happens going forward. For now, this is my trade plan for Monday. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Have a good weekend and good luck.